Hello.
Hey.
As Declan says, my name's Andy. This is my friend Hamish. This is Dan.
All right.
We're from Playtonic Games, and this is our game Yooka-Laylee. So if you don't know much about Yooka-Laylee, it's a 3D open world platformer. And we launched on Kickstarter in May 2015. You know, we're very grateful and very lucky to end up being the UK's most successful games Kickstarter. And this is the final game. This is the result of us kind of putting our heads down after the crowdfunding and trying to kind of deliver on as many promises as we can. So, as I mentioned, it's kind of it's an open world style of platformer. So you're free to go anywhere and you know, tackle various challenges in whichever order you like, basically. Compared to kind of the platform games you might have seen over the last 10 or 15 years, this is a very open game. It's not linear. It's not A to B. There are a lot of choices that the player can make on how they approach things. As you can see, our two heroes, Yooka, the chameleon, and Laylee, the bat. Very colourful chaps, and they were designed by a guy called Steve Mouse, who made some characters you might have heard of, including Banjo and Kazooie. And he came up with these with a kind of gameplay first approach. We were kind of thinking about what kind of animals would have interesting innate abilities for platforming. So Yooka's kind of got a whole suite of tongue abilities, so he can kind of gobble up stuff and use his tongue as a grapple hook. Whereas Laylee has kind of got more sonar-type moves. She can kind of stun enemies and break glass and obviously float in the air, as you can see there. So our team is comprised mainly of core key talent behind games such as Banjo-Kazooie and Donkey Kong 64 and the Donkey Kong Country games. So big classics in the genre. And they've been thinking for a long time about how we would approach this kind of game in 2017. So there are a lot of ideas that have been gestating for more than a decade. And obviously, you can see it's already very reminiscent straight away of those types of games that you might have played in the 90s. But there are lots of ways in which we've updated the genre and brought it up to date, including the chap that you just saw there, the little ghost that Hamish just collected. He's kind of the first part of our approach to collectibles in the game. So one of the important things that we wanted to put into Yooka-Laylee is we wanted to keep all of the fun of the 3D collectathons of the past, but avoid some of the occasional tedium when there was too much to collect and you were kind of, it almost turned into a resource sim. So one of the big ideas that we have to have the best of both worlds are these butterflies here. So if you gobble them up, you'll kind of refill some of Yooka's health, and if you collect them, we can't do that because Hamish ate them all, you'll kind of refill that power bar that you saw pop up on the left there. So every kind of move in the game will deplete that power bar. And the idea behind that is that we're still keeping the tactical choice behind when a player decides to use a special move, knowing it's a finite resource, but we avoid having to find 5 different collectibles in order to power 5 different moves. And that kind of extends to how we're treating projectiles in the game as well. So if Hamish goes up here and finds a berry bush, we can show you what I mean. So these are kind of in the environment, and if Yooka gobbles them up, he kind of absorbs their properties. So that was a frostberry there, which has kind of allowed him to shoot these icy projectiles. And he can go up here and feed this hungry ghost. He's one of the ghost writers. And there are 5 of those in each world, and they each kind of require a different way to collect. So he kind of obviously needed to be fed, and there's others who might run away from you or be totally invisible and you need to find by sound. They're kind of the final key collectible in the game. So as you can see, this is the first world in the game. It's the Tribal Stack Tropics, and it's already pretty massive. You've got this kind of key temple area in the middle here. There's a huge monument, which you can scale all the way up to the top there. There's another kind of temple area over here, and there's another village over there. In this build, which is one of the older builds, we have removed some areas for spoilers. So the final game will hopefully look even better than this, or I can promise that certainly at the moment it does. So we're very blessed to have very talented character artists So we got a guy called Kev Bayliss who made a lot of the Donkey Kong family and the Killer Instinct characters and Battletoads. We got a guy called Mark Stevenson who was lead on Donkey Kong Country and Cameo, and obviously Steve who made Banjo and Kazooie. So there are a lot of crazy characters in the game with funny backstories, such as Clara here, who has a knack for getting into a situation where she's being cooked quite often. And you can kind of see here, this demonstrates kind of attention to detail and the look and feel of creating a game that, even though we've brought it up to date in a lot of ways, it feels and sounds reminiscent of a kind of old school game. So you've got these big 2D sprites here, and which they're kind of obviously spitting out the trademark gobbledygook talking style that Chris Sutherland, programmer, and Grant Kirkhope made back in the day. Dan, can you tell us a bit about how...
Yeah, sure. It was such a massively important, paramount important thing to get the dialogue system completely right on this game. It's one of the most iconic things from the Banjo-Kazooie games, which obviously a lot of the people we work with did all those years ago. Basically, we were so gifted to have both Grant and Chris on board because they managed to dig out of their memory the technical aspect of exactly how we went about making the sounds. Things like exactly how many little yelps they make per sentence, exactly the kind of the rhythms of those as well. And then I spent hours and hours and hours listening to Banjo-Kazooie and listening to work out exactly what was going on with the pitches and the randomization and how many little sounds we're using per voice, and went through lots and lots of iterations of exactly how we're going to go about doing that. So it was
harder than you think.
It was unbelievably complicated, actually. It was one of those things where even just how we randomize pitch makes a big difference, because each pitch randomizer is not of the same character as another pitch randomizer.
See,
so
I thought you were just sat in your room making burp and fart sounds all day.
I mean, there's that too. There is quite a lot of that. I have a very good job. I'm very happy that that's quite a large part of my career. But there is some thought behind it as well. Certainly with the voices, that was definitely one of the absolute hardest things to get right on this game, that's for sure.
So this is one of the very first challenges you'll play in the game. So this is kind of introducing the player to combat. Clara here has kind of asked Yooka-Laylee to help fend off this tribe who are trying to cook her. And you kind of demonstrates their character a little bit. Yuka's kind of a bit down the straight and narrow. He's the player character, so we wanted the player to be able to imprint their own personality on him to a certain degree, whereas Yuka's, Laylee, sorry, is very much the devil on his shoulder. She'll be encouraging him to do naughty things and making kind of snarky remarks.
Yeah, so one of the wonderful things that we were able to do is, because there's so many characters in our game, is we kind of brought a lot of our team into the voices of the characters. For example, so Chris, who did the voices of Banjo and Kazooie, does both Yooka and Laylee, and that was a big importance
and
to us.
And Kickstarter backers as well, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. We managed to get various people who got on the right tier of Kickstarter. It was really great working with them, and loads of them. We kind of sat down and went through the characters that they voiced in the game and explained their background, who they were, and they came up with some of the best voices in the game, actually. It was really, really rewarding working with the Kickstarter backers, that's for sure. So
you can see, obviously, even down to those quills that Hamish would have run past there are actually 2D sprites rather than 3D objects. So that kind of level of attention that we wanted it to feel like an old school platformer. But there hasn't been a game like this for a long, long time. And we had a lot of ideas on how we bring it up to date. We weren't kind of satisfied on just trading on nostalgia. One of the key ways in which we wanted to bring the platform up to date was with a lot of player choice and empowering players on how they kind of make their own route through the game. So key to that is this guy Trouser here, who's kind of a serpent salesman in the game. And he's in every world, and he'll kind of, he's a bit of a Dodgy Dave type dealer, and he'll sell Yooka and Laylee their moves. And one thing we really wanted to do in this game is allow players to purchase moves in any order that they like, and kind of unlock content that they want to kind of experience. So if we'd have spoken to him there and we'd collected enough quills, we could purchase that sonar shot move that Hamish has just used to activate that totem. And as you can see, that's kind of given him access to a whole other level of the temple and different gameplay. And if the player hadn't have decided to purchase that particular move, and at the same time kind of forego other moves that they could have accessed, then they wouldn't have kind of been able to go up here and collect this molecule, which is another item which this beautiful lady down here, Dr. Paz, uses to power her machine, the DN Ray. We love our puns. And she uses that machine to transform Yooka-Laylee in every world into kind of different crazy objects. So on this world, I think, well, Hamish will show you. So this character here was designed by a guy called Ed Bryan, who also designed Mumbo Jumbo in Banjo-Kazooie. So he has a bit of a legacy in crazy Transformer characters. And her backstory here is that she obviously runs this machine as a bit of an eccentric scientist. And she's clearly had a bit of a mishap with it and ended up transforming herself somewhat. So Yooka and Laylee kind of try and be as polite as possible and tiptoe around the fact that she's has giant tentacle limbs coming off of her. So the backstory in the game is that Yooka and Laylee are kind of fighting against this big corporate villain who's powered up a machine to absorb all of the world's books. And there's one book in particular that this villain is looking after, and it's managed to spray these magical pages into the world, which we call pages. And that's what Yooka and Laylee are trying to collect and gather before this villain manages to do the same thing and rewrite the universe with the power of this magical book. So there's a different transformation in every world. This kind of flower here, if we will kind of cut it out for time purposes, but if we were able to go over there, you kind of use it to pollinate these different flowers and help out different NPCs in the world that wouldn't usually talk to Yooka and Laylee. So the other part of putting player choice into the game is this tonic system that we have. It's not in this build, unfortunately, but in the final game, you'll be able to go and see a character called Vendy, who's a big kind of animate vending machine. And she'll allow Yooka and Laylee to equip these various tonics. And what the tonics are gameplay modifiers, which allow players to kind of tweak the game to affect their play style. So you might have one tonic, for example, which makes sure a certain move lasts longer. There might be another that allows you to breathe longer underwater. And there are even some that make the game harder for people who are kind of looking for a tough experience. And the fun thing about those is they all kind of require different objectives in order to unlock. So they're almost like side missions themselves. So that's another way in which we're trying to empower players to kind of make their own choices in how they play through the game. And probably the biggest way in which we're doing that is our key feature, which are the expandable worlds. So this world here, when you first go into it, won't be quite this large. Players can choose to spend their pages to unlock worlds, but also to expand them and make them bigger and full of kind of more complex challenges and kind of tough content and characters. And the idea behind that is that we wanted to kind of have small, concise, kind of accessible worlds for kind of players looking for kind of a relaxed experience just to play through and see some cool different looking environments. But we also wanted to cater to the people, the genre stalwarts who want to collect everything, have a kind of a tough challenge, and also where the environment's so large that it's almost like a puzzle in itself. So this huge monument area that Hamish has just scaled, for example, is one of the environments that would have appeared after you've expanded the world. And he's come up here and met this character, Nimbo, who will explain to Yooka and Laylee that he's having trouble leaking water right now. So they need to help him out, help him with his weather anxiety. I should have used that one in the dialogue, it's quite good.
I love Nimbo.
I love
Probably my favourite character. Might have voiced it.
A lot of the dialogue in this particular demo didn't make it through to the release, but this is intact, so I can confirm. We're very much going for a Pixar Simpsons feel in the tone of the game. We definitely want people to be able to play this with their kids. It's a family game first and foremost, but there are jokes in there that the adults will get. So if you can, this will kind of demonstrate the berry bush system again. Hamish has kind of gone over and got this splashberry, and you can use it to help Nimbo out with his weather issues. And as you can see, by choosing to expand the world, and come up here and visit Nimbo and make him rain, which is something that the player could not have done if they hadn't have expanded the world. You've been able to kind of access this challenge and also have a transformative effect on the whole world itself. So if Hamish kind of jumps down, you can see that by making him rain, he's kind of filled in the previously dry riverbed, and it's now kind of a river, and you can access lots of kind of different areas that you wouldn't have been able to do if you hadn't have chosen to expand the world and go and see Nimbo. But if he goes back up, hopefully we can show off some of the other weather effects that Nimbo has. So there are other berry bushes up here, such as the frostberry bush up over here, which you saw earlier. And this will kind of allow us to help him snow. And as you can see, he's now kind of frozen the riverbed. This is going to hurt. Oh, no.
Our skills.
So as you can see, he's now frozen the riverbed, and this kind of allows the player now to access different challenges that they wouldn't have been able to before. Such, for example, in the final game, there's another smaller cloud called Nimble over here. And she kind of challenges Yooka-Laylee to a race across the dry riverbed. And if players kind of go and expand the world, go and see Nimbo, they can kind of access a new, more challenging race on the icy surface. So there's lots of other stuff in the game as well. We've got 8 unique multiplayer arcade games run by a kind of a 90s dinosaur who's like a big polygonal kind of T-Rex, who's literally a character left over from 1997. He explains that he's been waiting for his friends and they've kind of left him, poor old Rextro. So you'll be able to jump into these games, and you can also play them with up to 4 players locally. And they're all kind of very old school style games. They're, you know, like a micro machine style racing game, and they're kind of like capture the flag style games and all kinds of fun stuff. So there are 8 of those in the game. And there are also very cool minecart sequences as well, which the music's done by David Weiss, right?
And the minecart, yep, that's absolutely right. He wonderful about Dave is he's so local, so he's kind of popping into the office all the time. So he absolutely killed it on these minecart tunes, and they're all individual and they really suit the worlds. He also did a couple of the bosses as well. I really love Dave Weiss.
He did the Donkey Kong Country music, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So it felt right bringing all these key guys together to do these minecart sequences, which they're very old school and a lot of fun. If Hamish can find his way around, he'll get there.
One thing I really think it's been so important for us on this game is the music, just full stop. Obviously, Dave Weiss with the minecart tracks is great, but Grant Kirkhope's score for all the overworld stuff and the way it changes all the different environments, again, straight out of those 90s Rare games.
The soundtrack's amazing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We're going to have news on kind of how people will be able to get hold of the soundtrack very soon. Should we access it, fire it up? So this is Kartos. He's
the god of ore.
He is the god of ore, yes. And he's kind of another leftover character who's past his heyday, who kind of misses the days of when minecart races were all the rage. And he's just happy that Yooka-Laylee want to go on a ride.
Not that Laylee always feels
Oh no, Laylee, I don't think Laylee's very keen to get in his dusty old cart, get a rash. So he's kind of constantly reminding Yooka-Laylee that, you know, they've got it so good with their energy bars and their speed boosts and
checkpoints and
yeah. And I think Yooka-Laylee are quite bored of his rambles. So it's also really important that we, as you can see, it's like a big, loud font that we had made, custom made for the game. We just wanted everything to look and feel like it was a game dragged out of 1997 and brought up to date. It really does look great, the presentation. That's another thing worth noting, actually, is that in what I touched on at the start about how there hasn't been a game like this for a long, long time. I mean, especially on PC, if you think about your Marios and your, your Ratchet and Clanks and games like that, they're very linear A to B games now. This being an open world game where you can go anywhere and kind of we've given the player a lot of tools on how they can customize their experience through the game. That extends to the HUD as well. You would have noticed throughout the whole demo that there's no big mini map, showing the player where to go and, obnoxious waypoints, and where we really wanted the player to be able to explore on their own terms and discover secrets without having, big arrows telling them where to go, which a lot of modern day games do. So that the HUD is very minimalist. So what he did there is that on Kartos's minecart challenges, you have to collect so many of his gems in order to finish them. So it's not just a case of getting from A to B. You have to do it with skill. And I can promise you that some of the courses, as you progress through the game, get pretty tough. Let's see if we can finish off by getting up to the top of this monument, Hamish. Do you reckon you're up to it?
Oh, maybe not.
So Yooka can kind of also, as well as using berry bushes as projectiles, later in the game he'll be able to absorb the properties of a lot of things that he eats. So he's just eaten this cannonball here, which has made him kind of like heavy Yooka, so he can sneak past those windy guys. There's also stuff like he can eat bees' nests and kind of get sticky and go up slopes and other secret things that players will find as they progress through the game. There's also a lot of platforming compared to some of the games that we're kind of inspired by and our team worked on in the past. I think players will be surprised by kind of the level of actual technical platforming there is, as well as being an adventure game where you explore and meet lots of crazy characters, including this guy who's just a big cannon. We won't complete the challenge on this build, but he's a bit malicious, this guy. He's got some what he calls his friends over there, and he wants to deliver them a birthday present, but actually he wants to murder them with his cannonballs, as you'll discover. Should we see if we can get up the top, Hamish? Yeah. So we can kind of demonstrate how big the world is.
That's it. Final platform. There's only one thing you can do when you get up here, really. If you come up this high, well, there's only when you get up to the very, very top, there's only one thing that you really want to do.
He just picked up a power bar extender there, so they're kind of like Metroidvania-style collectibles that kind of add to your various bars.
You've got to jump off. Yeah, I can't come up to the top of this tower without jumping off.
Make sure you don't live as well. We want to see some death. He survived. And that's about it for Yooka-Laylee. That's the shotgun tour. Do we want to ask any questions?
I guess the most important question is, when are you out?
We're out. That's a very good point.
And on what platforms?
It's almost like you were hired to come here and remind me. We're out on the 11th of April, and we are releasing on PC, Linux, Mac, and for the console crowd, we're on Xbox One and PlayStation 4. And if you pre-order it today, you'll kind of get access to, we don't like calling it a demo because it's very custom built, but you will get a kind of a gameplay experience immediately from places like Steam and GOG, and it's kind of like a custom-built sandbox where you can try out the mechanics in the game.
Hey there. Just one question. I thought you were mentioning about the kind of the mysterious aspects of the game. There's things that you might scratch your head about for ages, which is one of the things for me, big things for me playing Banjo-Kazooie. There was these things that you just didn't know, and they'd be a mystery from the very beginning. and you've tried to keep that, which is great. Just wondering how you see that faring in the modern world, where you can hop onto your smartphone in 2 seconds and search for how to get past an obstacle. And do you think people will exercise the self-discipline to figure it out themselves, or do you think they'll cave in?
Now, there's one, I don't know about you, but there's one thing I'm thinking of where we've very purposely thought of that and created instances where the things you've got to know are completely dependent on what you've already done.
Oh, yes, yeah, we have, that's a good point, actually. We have...
Gentlemen, Warhammer is starting on the PC Gamer stage at
Total War.
Hey.
Yeah, we have kind of thought about that. There's a lot of stuff in the game that is bespoke to the player's route and experience through the game. So you won't be able to cheat and kind of go on the internet, because there is, you know, it will be unique to your playthrough. But it's a good point. There hasn't, you know, as we said, there really hasn't been a game like this for a long while. A very open-ended style 3D platformer, and it's, you know, we're not just expecting fans of the old games to be kind of taken by this. We're hoping that there's a whole new audience out there that perhaps have not played a game like this before, and, you know, we can kind of, you know, grab their attention. You know, we think that this is the sort of game that a lot of people will enjoy today. I mean, open world games have been big for a long while. I mean, player choice has been big in games for a long while. You know, why not bring back the 3D platformer and kind of embrace that style of gameplay?
I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about the process of how you go about writing for a 3D open world platforming wonder like this.
Well, first of all, we sit down and come up with as many nonsense puns as we can. We want, you know, it's everything we do. We have this mantra where everything we do at Playtonic, we want it to be fun. You know, whether it's a website or a trailer, or obviously a dialogue and a character in the game, it has to all be fun. You know, designers will usually come to me with a challenge, and they'll have a character and an idea, and, you know, we'll kind of bounce heads and come up with a fun scenario. The real answer to that, and this kind of goes back to the old days on kind of Banjo-Kazooie and games like that as well, is that it's really a culture among the team. I think you know, most of our guys at Playtonic are, you know, have been working together for 20 years, but also new guys have been hired based on their personality and their compatibility and culture-wise, and it all spills into the game, that we're constantly laughing and, you know, bantering with each other and coming up with these stupid puns. Like, you should really see a company chat room, which is like is just disgusting with puns.
One of the things I really like about working at Playtonic is definitely that the ideas come from anywhere. Everyone is encouraged to kind of chip in, again, with the puns, but also gameplay ideas and cool scenarios and little storylines for challenges and these kind of things. Like, everyone gets in and discusses and shares ideas. And
that's what made those games that a lot of our guys worked on so great. And we hope, you know, will make this game great as well, is that culture, that autonomy, that nowhere's off limits. Everyone can kind of input in lots of different areas. It's kind of, in a lot of ways, a big group of friends, you know, making a fun, happy, colourful game together. Hopefully that answered your question. Who's next? It's got to be one more. Yeah.
Take you first, and then we'll get to you.
Hi. Just wondering, what sort of challenges did you have when making this game compared to Banjo-Kazooie and others so long ago? Is there anything that you had to change due to how games are structured nowadays?
Well, actually, one of the things that I think is very liberating is games are a lot easier in some ways to make these days in terms of the technical limitations. Like the N64, of course, is a console from 20 years ago. So suddenly the need for, say, for me to compress all the music and use as few samples and as possible, and well, now you don't have to do that. We can have full quality music tracks. So in terms of the technical stuff, it's actually been a lot more liberating. You know, obviously, like, the artists get a bit more free reign in terms of like how many polygons they get to use, and everything's super shiny, and VFX and lighting and all these things. I think the flip side of that is, in terms of the challenges this time round, is suddenly you have, because you can pretty much do anything, you've got to learn how to rein it in. There is, so when you've got the license to do anything, it's very tempted to try and do everything. It's easy to get carried away. So kind of setting our own kind of like limits on exactly what we want to achieve and getting kind of really focused. I think that's really became the key thing this time round. And obviously for us, the key, what we want to focus on is recapturing the N64 era. And I suppose it's been quite a bit of a challenge kind of thinking, what is it that we can do to get that feeling back, to really look at that genre and bring back those things that people remember and love so fondly.
I'm sure our engineers will agree that a big thing in terms of streamlining the development process has been the existence of engines and stuff like Unity, which the game runs on, which is a huge help, and the various pieces of middleware, which means we don't have to go out and kind of create all this stuff ourselves. But at the same time, in a lot of areas, it's incredibly complex these days. And as Dan mentioned, in all disciplines, you have to rein yourself in. For example, in design and art, you can make such beautiful environments these days. But it's almost like in the N64 days, it was natural, because if anything was detailed, you knew it was important. You should go over there. Whereas today, you need to rein it in and make sure that you're actively thinking about the player's experience through the world and signposting things that might, will kind of shout out from the environment as important. But it's also, worth saying that, I think we're all incredibly proud of, what we've been able to make with an average of 15 people we made this game with in under 2 years. And that is thanks to a lot of the kind of middleware, the great middleware out there that have been allowed us to stop thinking about, process and focus on, thinking about what makes a great game and actually putting in the fun.
Hi, I have like one main one and then one silly one. So is there any specific thing you guys did with Unity to sort of, I don't know, smooth out your development pipeline, I suppose? Having used it, it sort of has some issues that we run into doing small games, and yet you've built this, which is amazing. So is there anything specific there?
I think there's the kind of man hours of having 5 full-time programmers on this it makes a huge difference. When you've got the kind of the resources, even if there's only 15 of us, like often with kind of smaller indie titles, when you've got kind of one programmer slash designer, like being as kind of small to mid-sized team of permanent people really gives you some leeway. But also there's other kind of third-party tools that we've used. So we use Wise in terms of an audio middleware, that really helps. We use something called Node Canvas, which has been fantastic, which is a visual scripting tool, which means that I can then put things in that otherwise would have had to go in code. The designers can construct things that would have had gone in code. Animations can be triggered off this. Effectively, it looks like a big Venn diagram of behavior logic that then could be populated by things that the programmers create bespoke for us. And we put in requests of, hey, wouldn't it be great if we could trigger this from this? And then they create it for us as a tool within this visual scripting language. And then being a visual tool, it's so easy for anyone just to look at it and go, oh, I can see exactly how the logic on this challenge or this world or this expansion works. So that really frees up interdiscipline, communication, and makes everything very visible of what we're trying to achieve.
Awesome, that's really cool. And the other thing was, how is Grant Kirkhope's rap coming along?
Well,
it's coming along. It's funny you should ask that, because the lyrics are there.
The lyrics are indeed there.
They just need to be rapped. So watch this space.
Thank you very much.